Hello, I'm just waiting for everyone to turn up before I introduce myself. I'm here in Vancouver, by the way. Where are you guys from? I'm always curious about that. Why is the hair here shorter than everywhere else? The hair that grows at the back of my head is shorter than everywhere else. I just noticed that. Wow, that was fascinating. Sorry about that. Okay, starting to feel better. I had stomach flu. My granddaughter gave it to me, and I thought, would I rather be sick and have a darling little granddaughter? Yes. Was it pleasant being sick? No. Okay, but yeah, starting to pick up a little bit. So, hello, Shellbug. Sorry, I can't read that on YouTube. So, where are you guys from? So, I've got Margie, Fanny, Lisa. Oh, that's a cute way of spelling it. Mary Frances, Linda. When I was growing up, really common names were Linda, Susan, Debbie. Those are three really common names. I knew tons of them growing up. Not as many Lisas. Oh, no, there's quite a few Lisas too. All the Lisa was usually Lisa Marie. But yeah, Linda was a very common name when I was growing up. And Melissa and Tara. Okay, from a tiny town in Oklahoma. I always think of that movie whenever I hear Oklahoma. I think the movie was called Oklahoma. So I'm a little bit giddy. I've been cooped up for days with the flu. So Erie, Pennsylvania. Must be spelled that or pronounced that way. Pennsylvania. That was Heather. And we've got Ashley from Rochester, New York. Welcome. Oh, we got enough people. I'll just get going. I'll introduce myself. My name is Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on my website, it's BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my courses, the boot camp courses. I have a big 5-week Q&A coming up with those. It starts in April. But anyway, you might want to check out my website if you want to know more about that. Anyway, that's the boot camp courses. I have 2 of them, one for toddlers, one for older kids. And when we run the Q&A, it will be for both. No, it won't. It can't be. That's stupid. Yeah, I mean, it would be for both, but they won't be combined. Anyway, so they'll be separate. Anyway, so also the, what am I thinking? No, I'm all mixed up. No, that's right. It is separate. So the, it has to be. It wouldn't make any sense otherwise. Anyway, or you can look into coaching. There's a big wait list for that. I'll get to eventually. Or you can listen to the podcast. It's called BratBusters Parenting Podcast. It's on all the platforms, and you can watch us on YouTube if you want to watch it. So let's get going with your questions. Melissa from Perth, Western Australia. Never made it out west. I lived on the east coast of Australia for about 20 years. Nancy in Alaska. Ella from the Philippines. Margie is from Edmonton. Welcome, another Canadian. Karina from Vallejo, California. And Mary Frances is Richmond, Virginia. So there's West Virginia, then just Virginia. They didn't plan that out ahead of time, did they? Okay. Okay, so I'm just waiting for your questions. I was just talking to a client recently, and I was saying, really the connection is so much more important than the discipline. The discipline, just look at it this way. It's something you want to get out of the way, get all sorted out, and then you can just relax and enjoy them. You don't even have to discipline anymore. Once you're a leader, discipline kind of goes away. So yeah, it is difficult initially when you're setting yourself up as a leader, but it's temporary. Becoming a leader is hard work. Maintaining it's a piece of cake, okay? So it is hard work though. Best way to transition a 2-year-old from a crib to a bed. I don't know if there's a best way for that. There's going to be some transition, upsets. That's only normal. But what did I do with my kids? What I did was, it was when, back in the day, my kids are 31 and 36 now. And back in the day, cribs, the mattress and the rail weren't that far apart. Like by the time they were 1, they could almost tumble over the edge. Whereas now, I know my granddaughter, she's 2 and she's way down there. The mattress is almost on the floor, completely different. But anyway, I transitioned both my kids quite young. It's when they flopped out, then that was it. I just put them in a bed. So what I did was I dismantled the crib pretty much that day, dismantled the crib, and I just put a mattress on the ground and I put pillows around it so that they still had the same mattress. And then I got, sort of different beds. I just sort of had sort of familiar stuff and also some new stuff. and they were getting out of bed. But at that point, in Australia where I raised my kids, things were different. The light switches are really low, but the door handles are higher. So it was quite interesting. So kids couldn't reach the door handles as well. I don't like locking kids in a room. I have a lot of reasons for that. But when they're really little, like I think my kids are probably about 18 months old when they went into beds. They were really little. And I was quite happy for them to be locked in a room. And, I would have heard them. We didn't have a huge house, so I would have heard them. But anyway, when I put them in there, I just put them in and they just kept getting up, and then I'd put them back in. Then I'd go, shut the door and leave. Or else I think with one of them, I sat in a chair beside their bed, but I didn't get in bed with them. But I sat in a chair beside their bed, and I was right there, and I was just sort of nodding off, like looked sleepy. And they just eventually fell asleep. Okay. Oh, I'm just about to go to bed soon. It's probably a lot of rinse and repeat, Tabitha. I don't think there's a lot of new stuff that comes up. Every so often, though, some little gem of a question will come up that I've never heard before. But thanks to a couple of books and I get to walk away. Oh, excellent. Good. Indiana, USA, Sky, etc. on YouTube. I'm on YouTube at the same time. Whenever I do a live, I go from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok, and then I'm on YouTube the whole time. That's where I save all these lives if you're interested. Yeah, I do get some new stories. My latest story is that my granddaughter made me sick, but she's cute as a button. I'll let it go. But yeah, horrible stomach flu. It was a nightmare. But isn't it always with stomach stuff? Okay. Hi, Mariah from Utah, and Christina from Long Island, Becky from Massachusetts. I see a lot of familiar names. Harvest from Arizona. Harvest. Is that your first name? Harvest. Never heard that before. It's nice. Lisa's North Carolina. See, now that makes sense. There's North Carolina, South Carolina, but West Virginia and Virginia. I don't know why. It's all because I'm very much, I like everything in a neat little compartmentalized. I just like to make sense out of everything. Obviously, I'm not an artist because they're usually more creative, and I'm not like that at all. Okay. Tara says, I'm having a terrible time potty training. He's 3.5 years old. Sometimes they are older. There's no set, age for this. I've tried most of the tips and tricks and I just can't get to stick. Have you bought my course? I mean, if it's just for potty training, you might not want to do that. But the boot camp courses have a potty training course in there, and you can use the incentive program. I have a whole system in that. You said he's just not interested. Here's what I might do too. I might just say to him, now usually at 3.5, there's probably some screen time, I'm guessing. There must be some favorite show. I would say, I'll tell you what, from now on, you can still watch your favorite show, but you have to be sitting on the potty when you do. And then if you sit there and you do nothing, then it gets turned off after a minute or so. But if you start doing something, then it can stay on for a bit longer. I would figure out a system around that. I just would. Something that came up yesterday, and I thought, geez, that was really interesting. It was someone was talking about picky eating. And I said, well, and I agree with myself. Stupid thing to say. But I agree with what I said about why I don't really talk about it a lot. And then I reassessed it. And I thought maybe I should. Sometimes you got to get creative. Everything I say is so black and white because I don't want to veer off too much. In coaching, there's a lot more gray areas because I get to know the people, and we do have to get more creative with stuff. But what I said last night was this picky eater, they couldn't get him to eat at all. So I said, well, or not, I'm sure he ate, but not well. So I said, well, what I do with my granddaughter is, and she's a really good eater, but sometimes she might be eating slow or something that she just doesn't feel like eating at the moment. But anyway, she's 2. So what I do is I take lots of videos of her throughout the day. And I have a whole bunch on my phone that are older anyway, but she doesn't care. She just loves looking at herself. So what I do is I'll tell you what, every time you have a bite, I'll show you. And I'm smart because I take quick videos too. I used to be stupid and take these really long ones. So now it might be just, a 10-second video. So I'll say, I'll tell you what, you take a bite, and then I'll show you a video of you. And she's like, oh, she just eats up. So, but yeah, and then I'll just show her a little video. The reason I didn't really like to teach that so much is because it's screens, and I don't like screens around meals. Now I'm going to defend myself because I'm grandma. grandmas are a little bit different. Someone asked me last night also, are you a grandmother or a leader with your granddaughter? I said, she has 2 leaders. Her mom and dad are fantastic at leading. So I said, no, she doesn't need a third leader. It's not my business anyway. I'm a grandma. And I do definitely spoil her a little bit more than I did my kids. You know, I don't know. I'm a grandma. So that's why I do it with her. I don't think I would have with my kids as much, but I might if they were super picky. I think one of mine was pickier. I might have tried that. You know, anything to get them to eat, right? So yeah, it's a good idea. But like I said, I don't like to lead with that. Okay, this is Dr. Farheen. Sorry, I can't pronounce all that. Sorry about that. Terrible names. Okay, this is on YouTube. How to develop good meal habits that they eat by themselves for age 3.5, 2.5, 1-year-old. Yeah, you sit with them for one thing, and you don't have them snack on a lot of heavy foods. So, and make meals like a social time. You can tell stories. I might read books at mealtime, but I wouldn't let them have books or toys or anything. They can only have their food, but you could read a book to them during a meal. So make it like a real social time and no heavy snacks between meals. I am he's a big, I don't know what he does, TikTok or something. And he didn't specifically use my name, but everyone in the comments said, I think that's BratBusters, right? From the way he was explaining my personality and all my techniques. It was all my techniques. So anyway, he called me that scary lady. I absolutely love that. Okay. How can I teach my almost 2-year-old to stay with me in public and not run from me? When we hold hands, he flops to the floor and refuses to walk. When I let him try to be independent and walk with, he runs. Well, why are you expecting too much from him? Put him in a stroller, put him in a shopping cart, okay? You can't expect a 2-year-old to do what you want, basically. You have to take charge sometimes. And if you're out, there's no way I would expect a 2-year-old to walk with me if they weren't so inclined, okay? My kids were pretty good. I was already a leader, so my kids are pretty good at that. My granddaughter is really good at it. She does lead me around by the nose ring when we're out, though, because I'm grandma. It's a little bit different. And I'm fine. But if I say, and it's funny because if I say, oh, no, sweetie, we're going this way, she does, because she knows, you know, when I say something, we need to do it, right? But yeah, so don't expect too much. You're expecting too much. It's like when people say to me, how do we get our 1.5 or 2-year-old to sit quietly and politely in church for the service? I'm like, are you kidding me? Don't expect too much. It's not fair. It's disrespectful to them. That's not fair to them. But it happens. I've had more than several people ask me that, like a tiny toddler, like 1.5 to 2, to sit through a whole, you know. Oh, I don't know what you're responding to. Okay. How to help a 4-year-old poop on the potty. Okay, if they don't like pooping on the potty, it's usually a boy, but not always, but it's almost always a boy, like 90%, I would say, that doesn't like to poop on the potty. There's 3 reasons for that. And I'll tell you why it's usually a boy in a minute, and you'll kind of understand by those explanations. Anyway, the first one is plot phobia. They might have been splashed in the past, so they think, I don't want that again. The other one is hanging phobia. They don't like the feeling of that poop hanging in the air and tugging on them. You know what I'm saying? Because they used to poop in their pants. It's all smashed up and warm and cozy, right? So, well, it doesn't sound that way to me, but anyway. And then the last one is cold butt. They might just be cold and they don't like that feeling, right? So the first, that one and the splashback, it's usually boys. They got more equipment hanging out down there. So, but anyway, that's why. So what you do is you get a little porta potty, just I know he's 4, but get a little porta potty. And then, so there's no water to splash him. Also put some toilet paper in the bottom, so he's got something touching his bum. That's that security feeling. And either hike the heat up in the bathroom or put like a little tent around him, like just an Afghan around him or something, a little throw around him. But when he's finished, hold your nose when you take that blanket off. But anyway, give it a go. You know, it might not work. He's 4. He's got it set in his mind. He doesn't want to poop on the toilet. So you might want to start using a reward system, which I certainly would. I don't treat potty, anything to do with bodily functions, I don't treat as bad behavior. So you use reward systems. Sorry. Well, someone else, Patty Flynn's giving some advice here. This is kids don't listen, they watch by age 2. Stay consistent. Yeah, they're all about actions, by the way. And their personality forms in the first 7 years of their life, and it's all done through observation, almost all of it. They're watching you. They're listening too, but it's the watching, what you do. So, that's why you want to be a leader. You do what you want from them. You be accountable, right? Something happened a while ago with one of my clients, and I was late for the session. I was like 2 or 3 minutes late. And I'm usually 2 minutes early, or maybe 1, but very rarely am I right on time. I'm always like a minute or 2 early. So anyway, I turned up a couple minutes late, and they turned up almost right the same time I did. So I said, by the way, I was 2 minutes late. So I said, you'll get a free session. And because if I mess up and something goes wrong in coaching, I make it up to them, or, we elongate the session, which I did anyway. But I still said, look, because my fault, something had happened. I don't know, my computer glitched or something, but it was still on my end. So this was interesting. And they said, oh, no, you don't have to do that. And I said, because, sessions are expensive, right? And I said, well, yeah, I do. I said, because I teach leadership, which is accountability, and I have to be accountable. Like it's easy for me to teach it because I am very accountable. If I was ever pulled over for a speeding ticket, I'm belly up. Sorry. Just give me a ticket, take me to jail, whatever. I'm accountable. So you want to show your kids that you're a leader, and leaders are accountable. That's why it's so important to check yourself. Don't yell, be consistent. And if you mess up, own it and have a consequence. So, but yeah, they're watching you. And I know these, therapy session style, discussing all their big feelings and big emotions. It's frustrating for me. There's a time and a place to discuss their feelings and emotions, but it's not around bad behavior. That what you do is you deal with it. You have a consequence for it. Or with toddlers, you have consistent corrective actions, which is a consequence. Anyway, all the discussions around bad behavior, it's huge, huge mistake. What you're doing is you're shaming and blaming and putting all this emphasis on it and discussing all their anger and all their frustration. And it's just so dumb, because what you're doing is you're emphasizing it and you're focusing on it and you're putting your energy into it. Where you put your focus and energy is what grows. You're making them feel worse and worse and worse. I'd rather say, okay, you did that. Here's your consequence. Now let's go play a game. That's how fast I move. Okay. Now, if they've got big feelings and big emotions, other than just acting out, that's different. I don't discuss that stuff. But if they've got someone hurt them at school or something, yeah, I'm all over that, right? I'm all over that. We'll discuss it. But otherwise, around bad behavior, it's all this discussion around bad behavior. It's just dumb. I don't know who invented that, but it's just dumb. Not that I'm opinionated. They'll even ask kids, now, why did you do that? Did you know? Oh, geez. Are you kidding me? Could you imagine if a cop pulled you over for speeding? Now, why would you do that? You know better than that. Could you imagine being treated like that? Isn't that awful? And yet you do it to kids. It makes them feel awful. Why would you do that? You know better. Say you're sorry. It's so patronizing. Did you and your husband have the same parenting style naturally? No, he didn't have one. He didn't have a lot of experience with kids beforehand, and he knew I did. So he just followed my lead, and he was great at backing me up, and he was a good dad. So he liked the way they were. He would just sort of follow the leader, which is me. There's usually one stronger leader. And but he didn't start out that way, but he was thrilled with me taking over because it was my department, right? Because I had so much experience with kids. Okay, this is on YouTube again. I heard you say that oppositional defiant disorder, ODD, is not real, but what about all the talk about executive functioning? How to teach this to your kids without the constant reminders? Executive functioning, what the heck's that? I've never used that term. And I think I heard it once before, and my daughter looked it up. I think we were doing a podcast or something, but it's not a term I would use. So executive, it's just people like to come up with these big fancy terms. Here's the thing, kids are not fancy. I'm not fancy. I love kids. I play with kids in their world, and I discipline as necessary. But yeah, I don't get into all that fluff. Sorry about that, but I don't like all that stuff. Just too. Kids aren't fancy. Just treat them with respect in their own world. Here's the thing, when you're a good leader, you bring out the best in your kids. You increase their self-esteem. You increase their pride because they have responsibilities and chores, right? They have to do their homework. They put themselves off to bed. They get ready for school without being asked, okay? That is functioning at a really high level. I don't know if they're executives. I wouldn't use that term, but you know what I mean? That is really high functioning. So yeah, you're giving them pride. I would never tell my kids to go to bed or do their homework or anything like that. They knew what to do. They did it. They had responsibilities. If they didn't do it, they knew mom would come in with a consequence, but that they didn't do it because of that. They just sort of understood that, you got to do what you need to do, and that's just life, right? So you got a 2-year-old who screams all the time. Yeah, just ignore them. Just ignore them. Just talk very calmly away from them, like you're not talking to them. And then when they do talk nicely, you're fast in there. Oh yes, what was that? Then they scream again. You move away. You're gonna be fast though. They got to connect the dots. Wait a minute. When I scream, I get nothing. When I talk nicely, I get attention. They'll eventually learn. How did you teach that? I was a leader. They just knew from a really young age that what mom said happened. When I said, I'm going to change your diaper, I changed it. There was no negotiating, and it was done fast. When I said, we're leaving now, we left. I picked him up, put him in the car, kicking and screaming. I just made things happen. When I said, we're doing something, it's going to happen. But I also play hard with kids, right? You got to play. I was really connected with them. So they never felt like that's all. It wasn't just always me taking charge kind of stuff. We had a lot of fun together. And they liked fun moms. So why would they act out? Because mom got real boring real fast if they acted out. I got real boring. Like a good example of that was I was the panty monster. I used to put my underpants on my head when I was doing laundry after they were clean. And I'd chase the kids around the house with them. And the leg holes were the eye holes. Anyway, so I was the panty monster. Now, if they had gotten overly crazy and acted out or anything, I would have gone, uh-oh, and I just would have taken the panties off and I would have said, we'll try again tomorrow. And they would have gone, oh. They wouldn't have said, please, please, because that's just pathetic. Like what I mean is they knew that would never have worked with me. Once I've said something, it's going to happen. I say what I mean and I mean what I say, but I'm careful what I say. Okay. But I just would have said, oh, I'll tell you what, we'll try again tomorrow. Taking the panties off, the fun would have stopped like that. Okay. They connect the dots and they like being nice. They like fun mom. They like a happy household. So yeah, I got real boring real fast. Okay, so you got a 6-year-old international adoption from Haiti. Okay, so she's got some trauma. That would be coaching. I would have to investigate that. I'd have a whole bunch of questions. Throw mud at the wall, what's worked in the past, what hasn't, what's, mud at the wall kind of stuff. So yeah, that would be coaching only. So I can't answer any questions with that. I would need more information. Anything that's sort of special needs or trauma or abuse or any PTSD with children or anything like that, that's coaching only. It's on my website, BratBusters.com, if you're interested. I've got a big wait list, but I will get to eventually. Oh. Okay. Any tips for helping a 3-year-old be more confident in group settings? This is Summer Willow on YouTube with other kids. So 3 years old and she's nervous to insert herself into play with it. They will learn. It's one of those things, the social skills is something they pick up. And because it's usually supervised, like what I mean is when they go to kindy or preschool or whatever you call it, there's usually someone there who helps the kids sort of, because they have group stuff. And, but yeah, they eventually find their place. Some are followers, some are leaders. I was a leader unless there was a nasty kid that came in. I would never fight with a nasty kid. Because I like leading when it was all fair. But if someone nasty came in, they just wanted everything for themselves, I would back away because I don't like fighting. So, but we find our place, right? And we're all going to have our own place in social situations. It's for kids with ADHD who constantly forget. What was the first thing? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to comment on that term just because it's not my term. There's a lot of stuff out there that people ask me about, but yeah. How does your coaching work? I notice the package is a few sessions together. What does the payout look like? I don't understand that. Anyways, $1,500 for 5 sessions, and they're 45 minutes each. And we pace them out accordingly. Like, if it's toddler stuff, we'll sometimes meet 1 week and then I won't hear from them. I'll say, you just let me know when you got more questions. We don't have a set plan with toddlers. We're just more reacting. Same with the course. The boot camp course is like that too. It's just more reacting. They had a tantrum. Okay, let's look through the course and see what she says about that, right? I do prefer it in the course that you read through the whole thing. But anyway, and then sometimes I won't hear from people for like 6 months if they've got toddlers. But more with the three and above, whenever we start using the behavior board, I like the first 3 sessions to be in a row. And then the 4th one, usually 4 sessions in 4 weeks, sometimes a bit longer. But I like to drag out a bit of time between the 4th and 5th sessions. I always say you get more bang for your buck that way, because the 4th session, everything changes, and then you get more time to practice it before we meet again. Most parents rehire me because they want the support. It's expensive, but if, it's like personal training or anything else, but whatever. And the reason why I can't take on a lot of new clients is because the old ones do keep rehiring me, and they'll always take precedence. But yeah, coaching is very intense. I talk very fast. I do take charge in coaching. It's not therapy. I don't focus on the past. I'm like, okay, well, I need a little bit of that, right? And sometimes it'll come up and I'll say, I know, I think something might have happened. Did this happen? Did that happen? Because it helps me to move forward, but we're focused on the future, and you got to let me lead it because I've got a plan. But anyway, I love coaching. It's my favorite thing. My favorite thing in my business by far. I love it. Because it's mothering, right? I love mothering. I feel like I'm mothering my clients. And you get attached after a while too to your clients. I remember someone once saying to me when I first started my business 20 years ago, and this is just some interesting business advice. They said, whatever you do, don't get personally involved with your clients. Don't take anything personally. And I said, I'm in the caring field. I don't operate like that. Like, I do get emotional, I do get personal, but my goal is get you where you need to be. But I remember that person saying that to me, and because they were, they were a coach, but they weren't a life coach or a parenting coach. They were doing something else, but it was similar. And they said, yeah, you never get attached or get emotionally involved, which I thought was the stupidest thing ever. But anyway. How do you recommend keeping connected and playing with an almost 2-year-old while taking care of a newborn baby? You're in that difficult stage. You got a toddler and a newborn. My least favorite client to get. Do you know why? Because you're tired. I can't push you. I have to hold back. I have to let a lot of stuff go because you're tired. You need to look after yourself. You probably need to let some things go because your number one priority is yourself, because you've got 2 little ones to look after. You got to make sure that you're physically healthy, emotionally healthy, because you're going to get drained. And that you just chose to have 2 kids close together. It is physically draining. Okay, but it's temporary. Okay, so what I suggest you do is with the 2-year-old, you have a little basket, and it's called the feeding basket. So whenever you're going to feed the baby, you say, let's go get the feeding basket. and you bring it down and you've got different stuff in there every single day. And you rotate it around. Just have a big bucket up on top of the fridge or something, and you rotate those little just entertainment things in there. Throw them in so they're different every time. You can do it every feed, right? You can just reach in there and grab a handful of different stuff. So every time you sit down to feed the newborn, then you've got the little one, and you could be reading books. It could be whatever. Just have different stuff in there. That's their time too. So they start to connect being loved and treasured and played with and attention with the baby. So they don't build resentment towards the baby as much. Anyway, I got to run over to Instagram now. If you want to join me over there, it's BratBusters.com. If not, check out my website. It's BratBusters.com. You can get my free behavior board, my boot camp courses. I have 2 of them, one for toddlers, one for older kids. And starting April 2nd, we have our live. It's not live. It's going to be a tape, like a podcast kind of idea. And it's just for the people in the boot camp course. And it's going to be Q&A session. We did it. I think we've done it twice before. I can't remember. Anyway. It's a little bit different this time because it will not be live because we figured it drags out a bit too much. People, oh, are you there? Are you there? So we're going to just cut it all up. So it's just nothing but information, questions and information for people in the boot camp courses. There's one it'll be done for the both courses. Anyway, check into that. It's free within the course if you're in the courses. Anyway, we're just trying to provide extra value for you because, the courses, you might have some extra questions in there because different things come up with different people, right? Or you might just want extra support. That's what that's all about. Anyway, that, and then you can look into coaching if you want to work with me one-on-one. I do have a big wait list, but I'm going to try and get to it tonight and see how many people are in there. It would be in the 3 figures, but I don't know how many of those. Anyway, but I'll get to that eventually. Anyway, and you can look into the podcast. It's BratBusters Parenting Podcast. It's on all the platforms, and we save it on YouTube if you want to watch us do it. That's my daughter and I. Because we work together. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm hopping over to Instagram now. Happy parenting. There we go. Okay, let me see some questions here. Oh, you didn't put down the age, Desert Diva. I need an age for that one. Not all of them, but that one. I always prefer an age anyway, just for sure. Then I can answer a question. Oh, your 4-year-old's in control. This is Annie. You're handing out consequences all day long. You can, if you're using my behavior board, you can bundle up the whole day. And you can just say, I'll tell you what. You can say, you did, okay, 3rd strike, you're out is what we do. So actually, I might explain that. I'll wait till I've introduced myself on here because a lot of people might, just a second. 3rd strike, you're out. I'll answer your question in a minute. So I'm just writing it down. Otherwise, I will forget. Okay, I flit around on here because I'm reading so many different questions. And I'm also looking at names. A lot of times I'll get clients turn up and I never say hi to a client online. But okay, so welcome to the live. My name is Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you check out my website, it's BratBusters.com. You can get my free behavior board, my boot camp courses. We have a free Q&A coming up if you want to check it out, a free Q&A. My daughter and I will be taking your questions and answering them on a Q&A video just for people in the boot camp course. That's coming up soon, so check it out. It's on the website, and it's also in your course. You'll see it come up in there. Anyway, thanks so much for joining the course. This is just sort of a little thank you for being a supporter in the course. It's just extra support, extra information for you. It's all free included in the course. Okay, that's coming up soon. And then also check out coaching. I do have a big wait list, but I'll get to eventually. Or you can look into the podcast. No wait list, completely free. 2 a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it's called BratBusters Parenting Podcast. It's on all the platforms, and we save it on YouTube. That's been overwhelming for us. The podcast has just taken off. And our goal in the first year was to hit 10,000 downloads, which is evidently a very lofty goal for a new podcast, because unless you're a celebrity, obviously, but I'm not that. So, but anyway, so we hit 1 million downloads in the first year. We were just dumbfounded by that. So we just want to thank you for your support. My daughter works really hard editing those podcasts, and we put a lot into them. So we trash a whole bunch of them. We just don't think are strong enough. So, but yeah, we just love doing it. And we just want to thank you for your support. We really appreciate that. Okay, so let's get going with your questions. Oh, the first one was, this was Annie on YouTube. YouTube, I wanted to address this one. She said, what if I'm handing out consequences all day long? 4-year-old boy knows that he's in control, basically. Okay, this is the third strike you're out. Use my free behavior board. It's on my website, BratBusters.com. And you use the free behavior board. And there's always 2 consequences for the kids. So there's 1 rule and 2 consequences. The first consequence is a positive action. It's like do a chore within 15 minutes of being asked to do so, something like that. If they refuse to do that, then you go to the second consequence, which is usually something like 24-hour media blackout, okay? So anyway, and that's their choice. They don't have to do that. All they have to do is the first consequence, but they don't always get that right away. So third strike, you're out. If you've got a kid who's really pushing you all day long, what you do is the third time, let's say the first time, let's say the first 2 times they did the first consequence. So, this is kind of confusing. Let me just break it down here. Okay. In coaching, this comes up all the time, but it's just specific to each family. So I'm going to try and generalize it a little bit more. Third strike, you're out. The third time they make a mistake or break the rule, then what you say is, if they haven't already had media blackout, if they already have it, just say, well, that's why you've got media blackout, okay? But if they haven't had media blackout yet and they've done the first consequence, what you do is the third time they break the rule, you say, I'll tell you what, that's the third time you broke the rule. So we'll discuss it after dinner. You keep saying that throughout the day. Oh, there again, you did it. After dinner, we'll talk about it. So after dinner, you said, okay, remember I said we'll discuss that after dinner. Let's go to the board. You never just talk about the board. You go to it. You walk over to it and you say, I'll tell you what. So the consequences, do a chore within 15 minutes of being asked to do so. You did that a couple of times, but then you kept breaking the rule. So we're going to go straight to 24-hour media blackout, and that starts now. And then you say, do you understand? Whenever you hand out 24-hour media blackout, you always finish it up with this. Do you understand? That's the ender, right? So you don't go, do you understand? Or, like, you understand? You got to be really careful with how you do it. You go, do you understand? So direct eye contact, and you're nodding your head. You're letting them know it's happening, and I have no fear of you. That's what you're doing. It's exactly what you're doing. Do you understand? It's the same tone, like that 8-year-old boy who said to me, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And I said, bring it on. It's the exact same energy. Feel that energy? No anger, nothing. It's just flat. But it's fine by me. Like, it's happening. Or you can have your fit. That's fine by me. Okay? It's very important to get the right body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions. A real cute client I had, she told me I could tell this story. I never tell names. Anyway, she was so cute. She had, I think, a 16-year-old boy. I forget, it was a couple years ago. Anyway, 16-year-old boy, and she was handing out a consequence. And she said, I just said to him, unload the dishwasher within 15 minutes was his consequence. So she said, and then he gave me the finger, told me to F off, and left the room. And I said, what did you do? Because I already knew what was going on with him. I said, what did you do? And she goes, nothing. I just said, you got 15 minutes to empty the dishwasher. I said, okay. I said, show me exactly how you said that. So she goes like this, and she goes, what? You've got 15 minutes to empty the dishwasher. And I said, you rolled your eyes. She goes, no, I didn't. And I said, do it again. She goes, oh, you've got 15 minutes to empty the dishwasher. I said, you did it again. So I said, next time, do it like this. You got 15 minutes to empty the dishwasher. Like, she just couldn't not show her disgust, disappointment, frustration, anger. She couldn't not do it. So anyway, that's why he gave her the finger and told her to F off and left the room. So she caused it. I'm not saying he should have done that. Okay, I'm not defending him, but that was the reason why. Your facial expressions, tone of voice, body language is more important than what you say. Okay, way more important. Think about it this way. Let's say you're a woman and you ask your husband, how do I look? And he goes, you look great. Think about it. What's more important there, his words or his facial expression? So watch yourself. Look in a mirror if you have to. I told her that. I said, next time, practice in a mirror and you'll see. because she just wasn't aware of it. So anyway, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs over that. And then I told her, I said, when we were finishing up our session, I said, great session. You're doing really well. She goes, okay, I get it. See, I love coaching. It's fun. Got to have a sense of humor. You don't hire someone who called their company BratBusters without a sense of humor. Someone said, I don't know what I was saying. Oh, about ignoring tantrums or something, how offended someone was by that. And I said, you're watching someone called BratBusters. Like, come on. That was teenagers I used to work with came up with that name. They said, you're always busting brats. You got to start teaching this stuff. So it was them. They can't blame them. Okay. Okay, 2-year-old hitting you when he gets mad? Yeah, they're going to do that. Just the first hit you can't always see coming. But if you see it coming, prevent it. Don't let them keep hitting and ignore it. That's just muscle memory. They'll just keep doing it. You're basically condoning it. If they get physically aggressive, you've got to stop it. So you just grab their wrists or whatever, and you just say no, and then you look away and hold them, okay, for maybe 30 seconds. Then let go. If they come at you again, keep doing it. You might want to turn them around. There's different ways of holding them just to prevent yourself from getting hit. You don't want to allow subsequent hits. Just say no, and then you might want to try walking away. But if they come after you, grab, prevent the hits, right? And there's 4 things they're either born to do or they're never going to do. Okay, one of them is hitting. It's called aggressive behavior. It's just in them. It's in their DNA. So some kids will never do it, and some will just do it. I mean, but it's one is aggressive behavior, one is running, one is climbing, and one is tantrums. Those are the 4 things that's in their DNA. They're going to give it a go, but it's your job to sort of train them out of that stuff. So it's not your fault they do that, but it is your job to train them out of it. I've got, I got to be careful how I say this, because a lot of people that I see around town when I've got my granddaughter, they know who I am. So anyway, every so often I'll see someone who has an aggressive child. It's rare that I see it handled well. What they usually do, there's different techniques I see, and they're all wrong. One of them is they say, oh, say you're sorry. Okay, you get a 2-year-old to say they're sorry, means nothing to them. Nothing. And then there's nothing else that they do. They don't take them away from the play. They say, and then the kid hits again. He said he was sorry. Why would you do that again? Well, of course he did it again. Like, words mean nothing to them. So, but they don't even remove them from the fun because they don't want to have a scene. Most of what parents do wrong out in public is because they're afraid of a scene. I have no fear of a scene. I am the same person when I'm home, when I'm out with the kids, doesn't matter, right? So it's really frustrating because I'm watching and I never see, and you should see them when they look over at me because they know who I am. And they're like, and I'm just pretending I don't notice. I don't offer advice. None of my business. I don't give unsolicited advice. I think that's rude. It would be like going up to an overweight person and offering them a card to a diet center. I would never do that. And I would never offer parenting advice. It's an insult. It's a passive aggressive criticism. That's all it is. And then people will defend that, well, I'm just trying to help. No, you're not. It's just criticism. It's mean. If someone came over to me and asked me, what do you think I should have done? Then I might offer advice. But even then, I'm very gentle about it, because they're not my client. So they don't need extensive advice. And anyway. Plus, I'm not on the clock. I've got my granddaughter. I'm just there to have fun with her. Newly 5-year-old suddenly scared of window against her bed and says she can't sleep there anymore. Well, I would just move the bed. She might have a fear that someone would come in. Maybe a hand would come through it. I have a vivid imagination. Do you know I'm 65 years old and I still look under the bed as soon as I come home? And I live in a very safe apartment building, but I look under my bed. Do you know why? I saw a crime show recently, about a year ago. This happened about a year ago. I did it when I was a kid, and then I just picked it up again like a year ago. I saw a show where it was a true story, a true crime story, and a girl went into a dorm, fell asleep. She came home late at night, fell asleep, woke up in the morning, and heard a funny noise. I don't know if he was snoring or something. And a guy he'd snuck in, was sleeping under her bed all night. I don't know, it just stuck with me. So I have a very vivid imagination, and she might too. Maybe she's like me. So yeah, I would just move the bed if I could. Yep. Or put different curtains up and tell her those are safety curtains. Monsters or anything can't get through those. I told my kids, they both went through a stage where they were afraid of a monster, a boogeyman or whatever at night. So I said, I'll tell you what. And I was a leader, so my kids believed what I told them. They knew some of it was silly, but anyway, I said to them, look, monsters are terrified of me. Okay. They know I know what I'm doing. So I said, what I'm going to do is at nighttime, I'm going to check everywhere. I would make a big show out of it. I'd check underneath the bed. I'd say, nope, nothing in here. I'd check in the closet. I'd check behind the curtains. I'd open up the drawers. I said, no monsters. And I said, now they also know that I've already checked here and I've scared them all away. They will never come back. My kids only went through one night of that, but I was already a leader, and they felt I was kind of had some power. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of magic in a way. So like they thought, oh, I used to do magic tricks and everything too. So I told them monsters are terrified of me. So yeah, they never came back, and my kids believe me. How should I handle my 2.5-year-old saying, stop talking to me? I'd go, okay, whatever. Yep. It's just, they're just going for a reaction, right? Stop talking to me. How's that making you feel? Imagine if you're 2 years old and your parent you can control your parents' emotions. You can see them get frustrated, angry. It's very powerful. They'll go for strong emotions, good and bad. Happy ones, bad ones. So yeah, imagine the power in that. Just don't give them that power. You can give them the happy power. Yeah, I did, for sure. I play hard with kids. I play a lot with them. Laugh easily with them. I really enjoy kids. But if they're trying to make me mad, that's never going to happen. Yeah, just go, oh, okay, whatever. So yeah, don't give them the power. Leaders don't do that. Leaders don't give children the power over their emotions like that. It's hard to do, but once you get good at it, it's a piece of cake. Okay, so how to connect with an 8-year-old daughter who loves video games? Yeah, but just control how much time she spends on them and then do other things with her. Okay? And then she gets annoyed because you're so bad at it. Well, I would too if I was really into a video game and the other person couldn't keep up. Like if you're doing a racing game with someone and they're going off a cliff all the time, like my son would never have played racing games with me. So yeah, because I was so bad at it. But a lot of games you take turns, right? So I like Crash Bandicoot. I remember we'd all take turns doing Crash Bandicoot. So that was kind of fun. It was the only thing I actually finished it. It took me about a year. Everyone else finished long before I did. But anyway, but yeah, just bond over other things then. Or you can just watch her and, praise her. Wow, that was good. Well done. One thing, and there's different games too. Like one thing I remember my son and my daughter wasn't into video games, but my son was. He's 36. He's still got a big gaming console set up. He loves video games. Anyway, we just did Guitar Hero because we could do that together. Yeah, I was still bad at that, but that was fun. So we did that. Okay, read the behavior board. This is Chloe. If you see improvement in the behavior and it only happens, say, once a week, should I move on to a new rule in the behavior board? Yeah, you should. We've had the same rule for 2 weeks now. Okay, no, you only usually have them one per week. Okay, if you've had the same rule, you're working on another behavior board, you can still have one mastered, but you've always got to have one rule that you're working on that isn't perfect. It could be do a chore. So it could be put your shoes and jacket away within 5 minutes of arriving home, or put your dishes in the sink or in the dishwasher before you leave the kitchen. That could be a rule. So you're getting them to get into routines too. But yeah, you should always have one that you're working on, but you can literally have 3 behavior boards up after 3 weeks. You don't go past that, but you can have 2 of them already perfected or none of them. So you could be working on 1, 2, or 3 behaviors at the same time, but you always want to be working on one. But if you don't have anything to work on, then aren't you already a leader? So yeah, you don't need, I would, and then we go, by the way, in the course or in coaching, we go away from the boards. We only use them for the first 3 weeks usually. They can still keep them up, but you don't focus on them after that. We focus on everything. Because the boards are just there to teach you how to do this. Like I would never use a board because I don't need it. It's a teaching tool, right? Like, and I don't want kids looking at a board. I want them looking right at me. But when you're learning how to do this, you use that board as sort of a buffer. Yeah. Does anyone here have teenagers or any teenage stuff? I get mostly toddler questions on these lives, which is fine. But I do specialize in teenagers. So if anyone ever has any teenage stuff, I can't often give you really good answers for that because it is usually coaching because it's more complex. But sometimes I got general stuff. I could read out my top 5 tips for teenagers if you want. So you know that it's not just for toddlers. So if anyone's interested in that, and if you're new here, you might not have heard it before. And you're all going to have teens one day anyway. So please talk teens. That's what I'm most scared of with. Okay, I'll read out my top 5 tips for parenting teenagers. It was my favorite age. I love working with teens. I love raising teenagers. Okay, these are my top 5 tips after all these years of experience with them. And, nothing's perfect, but this is what's worked for me and what I found. This is number 1, listen to understand and show empathy. You don't want to listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. They already know it anyway. Number 2, negotiate as much as possible. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper. What do you want from me? Reciprocity, right? You're building mutual respect. Number 3, don't sweat the small stuff with teenagers. If they do something stupid and it's not, say, well, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did when I was your age? And laugh it off. Or do you want to hear what I did this morning? We all do dumb things, right? That's okay. There's no shame in making mistakes in this world. We all do it. Life's messy. People are messy. Number 4, don't leverage the good times to discuss the bad times. So you're sitting down having, hot chocolate with your teenager, then you want to hash out all the trouble they've caused you the last couple of years. Huge mistake. That's just your own revenge. That's all you're doing it for. There's no point whatsoever. You're just going to go backwards. It's disrespectful. And yeah, never discuss the bad times. Your revenge is when they have their own teenagers and they complain to you. You can just go, that's a shame. That's your revenge. It's a slow burn, but you'll get there. Okay. And number 5, you can be a right fighter or you can be happy with teenagers. You can't be both. They will die on any hill. Even if they know you're right and they're right, and even if they know you're right and they're wrong, they're still going to die on that argument hill. There's no point arguing with the teenager. Okay. By the way, they're not always wrong. A lot of times when I'm coaching parents who have teenagers, they'll say after a couple of sessions, the teenagers will start to get where I'm coming from. I don't meet any kids. I never talk to them, but they'll start to understand that I get them. I know that I'm trying to straighten out their parents, right? They get that. So often the teenager will say, can you ask that lady if she thinks I'm right or you're right? And it's extremely rare that I agree with the parents, because the teenager would never say that unless they knew I'd agree with them, because they sort of get that I understand them. Just through what their parents are saying and doing with them. But isn't that fascinating? They're not always wrong. Sometimes you are. Like I don't believe in curfews. Doesn't mean they're out all night. I've got a different way of dealing with curfews, or, when kids go out at night. But I don't believe in curfews. It's so restrictive and disrespectful. If they're having a great time, there's no way I would pull a 16-year-old away from a party because they have an 11 o'clock curfew. It's ridiculous. Okay, but if they're having a lousy time, we'll go pick them up early. Okay, that's my top 5 tips for parenting teenagers. I used to mentor troubled teens, and they taught me more about myself and life and patience, and probably than anybody ever did. They're also the ones who said, you've got to teach this stuff, Lisa. You're always busting brats. So they kind of named my company. How do you handle curfews? Okay, I'll tell you what I did. I had 2 kids. My son was he liked to go out and stay out late. They were gaming usually, on video games with his friends and that. So I always knew who he was with, where he was, and I trusted him 110%. And so I would say to him, okay, here's the rule though, is I'm not stupid either. I know maybe he might try liquor or something. I'm not dumb. But anyway, so I said, okay, so here's the rule. And up to about 10 o'clock or something, after 10, I think it was, this is when he was about 15, 16. So I said, maybe it was 11, after 11, you have to call me every 90 minutes. And just to let me know you're still alive, just to check in, right? You can't text, right? So I said, you have to call me. And it's just quick, like, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, blah. And so he did. But if he forgot, I would call him, and or I'd give it a few minutes. It was kind of loose, right? So, but that was the rule. So we just check in, and it went like this. Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, but it was that quick. It was no big deal. But then I'd say, "Oh, you ready to come home?" And he'd say, "No, I'm having too much fun. Can I stay later?" I'd say, "Sure, okay." Or if I wanted to get to sleep, or what I would do though is I put my alarm clock on for every 90 minutes. And I'm lucky I could fall back asleep quickly. It just got to be in the routine. You got to suffer some with teenagers. I suffered so that I did have a good relationship and an easy go with my teenagers. You know, it's like the newborns. I also suffered sleep-wise, and I suffered sleep-wise with my son, who did like to stay out late. Plus, it was really hard with me. I was a single mom, and when I went to pick him up at 2, 3 in the morning, I had to wake her up and take her with me to pick him up. But that was my choice because I wanted him to have that freedom. It was important to me. You got to give to get. I gave him a lot to get back. Respect, right? So yeah, you got to give with teenagers. If I just said, okay, 11 o'clock is your cutoff, there would have been some pushback. I think that's disrespectful. But here's the thing. If I'd said to him, look, sweetie, unless it was a super important party or something, but usually it wasn't that important. So I'd say, look, I'm not feeling very well. Can you just stay home tonight? And he would, because I gave him so much respect. You see? See the difference? Or I might say, look, I'm getting really tired. Can I come pick you up now? And he'd say, sure, okay. Or can you wait a half an hour? And I said, sure, okay. So it was always this back and forth. He'd stay out he did that maybe once a week, maybe. Or yeah, about once a week, I'd say. I don't think he realized teenagers are very selfish. Like someone's asking, how often would he stay out late knowing you stayed up for him? I don't think he really got that. I don't think he realized how much of a sacrifice it was for me. I've never discussed it with him. He's 36 now. I didn't feel the need because parenting is give, 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 right? So I don't feel he owes me anything. I don't expect a thank you for that. But he was a good kid. That was the thank you. He was a great kid, right? Yeah, you got to give to get, right? You got to give respect and give. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know why people don't want to do stuff like that. No, I want them in at 11. Okay. It's not my style, but okay. The things change in the teen years. They just do. You know, you're a leader. Between 3 and 12 is when you're at the height of your leadership, okay? All their behavior is a direct result of your parenting. Teenagers, you want to hand that leadership torch over to them more. Give them more freedom, or else they're going to take it behind your back, right? That's the way I looked at it. I always knew who he was with. I always knew where he was going. And I always knew I could get a hold of him. And I always trusted that if anything went awry, he'd call me, guaranteed. So I knew that. And my daughter didn't stay out as late. And I did the same thing with her, but she wasn't a late night person, really. Whereas he could go all night, like he was just one of those, right? But we're not all built like that. So, but yeah, it was just my personal way of doing it. I do recommend it, but if you can't do that for some, like I said, being a single mom was really hard because I had a younger daughter that I had to wake up in the middle of the night. That was the hard part. Oh, good night, Tabitha. Thanks for joining. Two-year-old saying no, even if they want to do it. Yeah, my granddaughter went through that. She, just before she turned 2, was the height of that. For me anyway. I don't know what she's like with her parents. Pretty similar, I'm sure. But she would just say no, and then she'd hold your hand anyways, crossing the street. So yeah, just ignore the no's. Follow through with what needs to be done. Did you have any additional safeguards for your kids at sleepovers? So many statistics around. Oh, that's a loaded question. I'm not big on sleepovers. Okay. I'll tell you why. I have a lot of experience working with kids who've been abused. You know what I'm talking about? And it was never the family that people trusted. It was the visitors who were also staying over. Might have been the older brother's friend. It might have been an uncle that came by. Maybe he had a late night and they lived closer to, so we'd get to their place and sleep over. So yeah, I'm not big on sleepovers. Why do they need to sleep over anyway? Why? Then they're sleeping for most of it and they wake up, they're all a mess. They're all cranky. And so I don't think they're necessary. I'm not big on them. I'm just not big on them. Like I said, too many situations. My daughter had the odd one. I knew the family, and I asked who was staying, if anyone else was staying over, but believe me, I had to know who was around. Yeah, and I did. I checked into it. I don't get a lot of opposition these days, people arguing with me. If you disagree with anything I say, please speak up. I think that's important, because if you disagree with something I'm saying, or you've heard something else that you think is better, and you know better, just speak up, because I'm here to. I really believe in what I'm saying. But yeah, it's important, because if you're confused about this or don't agree with me on something, yeah, speak up. I'm open. I love that stuff. So. Okay, I'm going to make a funny comment. I think it's funny. This is Julia. Those statistics are what makes me want to say no to sleepovers. Adults don't do it. Why should kids? Lots of adults sleep over, but you know what I mean. Yeah, we don't hang out. We don't just basically sleep over at our friends' houses, right? Because then you're just sleeping. Like, what's the point? I did it a lot when I was a kid. Like, we used to do that. It was really popular back in the 70s and 80s, I guess, or early 80s. When I was sleeping, we always were sleeping over at friends' houses. It was just done, but it was awful, because you'd be up all night giggling, and we'd be phoning these radio hotlines. I remember, it's so stupid. And then we'd be absolutely bagged the next day. So it was just so silly. It was fun, but silly. Okay, I got a 4-year-old hitting you a lot lately. Okay, yeah, he's really out of control. You might want to look into the course. It just gives you a lot more information, because sometimes the behavior board's great, but there's so much else going on. You might need a course. So check out the boot camp course. We do have a big special event coming up with all the 5 Q&A sessions coming up in the course. And anyway, you can look into that. Starts on April 2nd. But yeah, you might need a bit more information, right? Well, I kind of need the age. Let's say they're 5 and 7. Advice on you've got a split home, and they go from other, 50-50, let's say, different homes. Don't worry about what the other home does. You can say to them, look, I got this behavior board going. If you want to see what it is, you can have it at your place. If not, never mind. Okay. You don't try and micromanage someone else's home. They're going to do what they're going to do. Here's the thing. When the kids are about 3.5 to 4 especially, they carry the leadership umbrella everywhere they go, because the leader brings out the best in them, makes them the happiest, and gives them the highest self-esteem, right? So they mold into the leader way more than anybody else. They're drawn to a leader and who they become with the leader. So they will carry your umbrella. If you're a really good leader, they will carry your umbrella everywhere they go. I remember my kids, we used to call their dad the treat master. He was a really good dad, but we used to call him the treat master, because he loved taking the kids out, and buying them hot chocolate and donuts or whatever. And I didn't like junk food for the kids, but we knew what he was doing, and it was no big deal. But they would say they couldn't wait to get home and tell on Dad. Well, Dad bought us this, Dad. And we always had this sort of game going, Daddy, did you do that? So they loved that. But he had a bit of a different style, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like, they can adjust to that. But yeah, I wasn't going to micromanage him in that, if he wants to be the treat master, that's great. He loved doing it, and the kids loved it. So what I did was I never took them out for treats, because that was his thing. Right. So, there might be, you have different relationships with your kids. Right. But he was under, he liked the leadership stuff at home too. But the other home, don't worry about it. Right. Like, if my kids had acted out with their dad, well, they wouldn't have, because they were, they had a leader. They just don't tend to act out, because they would have been humiliated if it got back to me. I'm so excited. I thought you were going to argue with me, but I do appreciate your support. This is Chochasan321. Out of all the research coaches and professionals in social media I followed, you have helped the most. For me, your advice has resonated the most. Just want to say thank you. I thought you were going to argue with me, and I got so excited. That's very sweet. I really appreciate that. And I'm not going to resonate with everybody. You got to find what works for you, right? I don't think mine, it's like religion. I don't think my method's the only one out there, right? There's lots of, you got to find what suits you. So if my style, if you go, God, I hate her. There was someone, this was so cute. Someone said, I just can't stand your personality, but I follow everything you do. But they hated my personality. I thought, great, I'd rather you hate me and get great results. I don't care if you like me. That's just a bonus if you do. But I want you to enjoy parenting. That's my main goal. Anyway, I thought that was so funny. I just hate your personality, but I follow everything. I do everything you recommend. I love that one. That was great. Good stuff. Teen relationships and dating. I'm going to have to save that for TikTok. I'm going to answer that over there because I really do have to go. I'm going to write that down so I don't. Teens dating, and I'll tell you my advice on that. I'm not withholding it so you go over to TikTok, but I really have to go. So I've got to move over to TikTok, and it'll come. You can ask again in a future live if you don't want to follow me over to TikTok. Anyway, if you don't want to follow me over there, check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can get my free behavior board, my boot camp courses. We have a big Q&A whole 5 weeks session coming up. You'll see it's on the, so it's an added bonus in the course. You have to be in the courses to get it. Anyway, check that out on my website, or you can look into coaching. I do have a big wait list, but I'll get to that eventually. Or you can listen to the podcast. It's called BratBusters Parenting Podcast. It's on all the platforms, and we save it on YouTube. Happy parenting. I'm going over to TikTok. Or was I on TikTok? No, Instagram. God, I spent too much time on there. I got so much to do still. Okay. I get talking and I lose track of time. Oh, that's sweet. Thanks, Kea. Thanks for that. Kea Roma. I was telling someone, I said, I get very uncomfortable when some people get really excited when they see me and in public. And I said, it just makes me so awkward. Like I get so uncomfortable. I mean, I'm sure I handle it okay, but it just makes me not feel good. Or I can't explain it. Some people want to take pictures with me. I get really uncomfortable sometimes. But then someone said to me, they said, well, is there anyone that you follow online? There's someone in particular I've been following for about 10 years. If I ran into her, it's just a cleaning channel. I love cleaning. If I ran into her, I'd be fanning all over her, getting a picture. So, because you feel like you're friends. So when they explained it like that, I got it. I thought, oh, I get it. Okay. Yeah, it's just so awkward. And then this was funny. Someone was taking a picture and then someone else came along and said, oh, you're so-and-so. And then other people started crowding around. They said, oh, who is it? And they said, oh, she's a parenting coach. And they went, oh. Oh, okay, never mind. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Oh, how boring. Okay. I was going to talk about, first I'm going to introduce myself, then I'm going to talk about teen dating, because I think it's such an important topic. You're all going to be there one day. If you have toddlers right now and you got a lot of toddler questions, that's usually what I end up answering. Your kids are all going to be teens one day, so you might want to take notes. Okay. Just bought the course. Oh, hi, Heather. Heather Storley. Okay, teens dating. Here's what I recommend. And there is no set age. Okay, it could be 13, 14 is often when they want to start dating. I don't have a problem with that, but there's a lot of sort of restrictions or boundaries. Here's what I recommend. Now, it depends on the relationship that you have with that teenager, how advanced and mature they are, how immature they are, what their friends are like. There's a lot of variables. But generally, here's what I recommend, 13, 14, if they want to start dating. They have to be driven somewhere by an adult, by a parent. Okay? They can't just sort of get on a bus maybe, or because I don't know where they're going, right? So anyway, and they have to have a tracker. They always have to have a tracker on their phone anyway. So they have to be driven somewhere and dropped off, it's usually in a mall. They can't go to a movie. because all sorts of stuff happens in dark theaters. It has to be a group date, and it can't just be all couples, because then they're all going to couple off. There has to be some just single friends in there too. So those are some, and not all of those rules are going to work out, but that's sort of my idea of how that works. I remember once years ago, I used to do a lot of TV and radio, and back when that was a thing. And then I realized that doesn't drill up any business anymore. Like it just doesn't work anymore. But anyway, so they said to me once on a show, and they said, what age, someone called in for parenting advice because it was all live. And they said, well, what age should they start having, what? I don't want to say it out loud because sometimes kids are listening, although it's pretty late. But anyway, and I said, what I told my kids is I said, wait till you're about 50, because hopefully I'll be dead by then. There is no, but anyway, there is no real age for all that stuff. There's so many variables, who they're dating, the maturity level, and I've worked with kids who've been really young and have started, and it's not a black and white. Nothing with teenagers is black and white. It's like a lot of gray, because you got to let stuff go. You got to balance out what's important, what isn't. Teens that's why that's my favorite age. In coaching, I actually have to really put my thinking cap on sometimes with teens. Any crisis work or team work, I have to put my thinking cap on, which is good. The rest of it's just by rote usually, but that one is teen stuff it's fascinating. I love teenagers, my favorite age. Okay, anything to do with toddlers, bad behavior like hitting. Toddler is 16 to 35 months, the way I break it down. Check out my website, BratBusters.com. The free behavior board actually has like how you deal with toddlers, how you discipline toddlers. It's with consistent corrective actions. If they do something naughty, you say one word only, just say no and say it calmly. And then you remove them from the fun or remove fun from them. You got to be fast though. It's got to be right in the present moment. If it isn't, it doesn't work because they're too little. They can't think ahead or think behind as much. And they learn through, it's almost like muscle memory. Like they might touch a hot oven 10 times, but they won't touch it the 11th. Not a lot of thought goes into that. It's more muscle memory. It's more just knee-jerk reaction. Some of my clients are child psychologists, and they said there's a term for that, how they're learning. It's more just through practice and repetition. But I don't know the term. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't use it because I ain't that fancy. And I don't have any degrees, So, and then why would a child psychologist hire me? Because parenting is very different from working with kids. Okay. Someone said he doesn't care about timeout. Neither do I. I hate timeout. Get rid of it. It's horrible. There's 3 really popular parenting discipline methods that are just awful. One is timeout. One that's even worse is the distraction. You never distract with broccoli. You're always distracting with something fun or good like candy or fun, right? So distraction is rewarding bad behavior. Timeout is just cruel. You're putting them in a corner by themselves. You think about what you did. Imagine if your boss did that. You made a mistake, go sit in a corner. It's awful. I hate it. I think it's demoralizing. The worst one, though, is the countdown. It's while they're doing something naughty and you count down to get them to stop. Then they stop, and then there's no consequence for it. All they've learned is they can be rotten for 3 counts. They can keep kicking something or kicking someone. Yeah, it's a mixed message. So you can be rotten for the short term, but not in the long term. Doesn't make it. It's very confusing. And it makes you look like you're afraid of them. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to count and hope for the best. 1, 2, 3. You see, it's a fear-based parenting method. Distraction is when they're doing something naughty. Look at this. Look over here. Like I said, you never distract with broccoli. It's always something fun. Look at this. Oh, wow. You just rewarded that bad behavior. This is when they're doing something naughty. Now you can distract with babies, but it's even a little bit different than that. But anyway, I'm afraid of him. He doesn't listen. I don't know the age. Anyway, check out my free behavior board. It's on my website. It shows you how to start with all this stuff. I can't solve your problem with your kid in one quick answer. It's a whole process. You got to set yourself up as a leader, because remember, we're not fixing kids here. We're fixing and teaching parents. Okay. They're going to do what they're going to do, but it's you're the one who should be able to control yourself. That's all we can do. We can't change them. We can only change ourselves. They will follow you eventually. What's the alternative to timeouts? I've already answered that. That's the free behavior board. It explains how you discipline. The free behavior board. And then it also has a toddler little mini course in there too. Redirection is distraction. Have you really never read any parenting books? 100% absolutely never in a million years. Never. Kids taught me all this. I went right to the source. I was volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11 years old. I just always understood kids. I used to babysit at 11, and they used to fight over me if they had difficult kids. I was good with the challenging kids. I just understood this stuff. I just always understood kids. So, and I've got a real maternal instinct. So, but yeah, never. Why would I read a book? You know what? If I did, I'd just be going, oh, that's stupid. That's stupid. That's stupid. Yeah, that would drive me nuts. If I want to know about kids or teenagers, I go right to the source. They taught me everything. I am, what do they call that? Natural, organically, I've learned. Plus, I don't want some other adult putting their ways on me. I want the kids to tell me what they need from me. I want them to show me what they need from me. I don't want some adult. I'll tell you something funny though. I was 20 and I decided I should be a child psychologist because everyone, was telling me you should be a child psychologist because you love it so much. And I said, sure. I just took this prerequisite, and it wasn't even a prerequisite. It was an introduction course or something. I don't know. Anyway, I took that and they kicked me out after a week. Why would they kick me out? I was the only one they'd ever kicked out, evidently. It's because I asked too many questions, and they were good ones. And the other students started asking me about kids. The reason is this is 45 years ago, and I'm sure they've improved by now. They know more about kids now, but it was so patronizing. I thought, are you freaking kidding me? Thank God I never did that. I would have been under that umbrella. And I would have had to have followed what an adult was telling me to do with kids rather than kids showing me what to do, right? Like I'm organically taught. I've never looked at I don't look at any other parenting coaches or anything. I don't look at other parenting, but I would just be annoyed by it all. Are you freaking kidding me? You sit them down and discuss all their big feelings around that bad behavior. It would drive me insane. So yeah, plus when I'm insulting something, I'm not insulting anyone. Okay. I'm just criticizing a whole umbrella of methods that my clients have told me are very common and that I see parents doing out there. About 40 years ago, I remember seeing participation awards when they first were invented. About 40 years ago, I don't know how long, but anyway. And I remember thinking, oh my God, is this a joke? You get an award for doing nothing? And that's the very start of the pleaser parent style. And then it got worse and worse. Then you hold their hand when they're naughty, get eye contact and say, use your words. Moronic. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, they're going to, the whole future. I just thought doomsday. I thought you're going to raise self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues with this approach. There's no leadership in it. It's just coddling them and raising these weak individuals. So I saw it coming way before it really hit hard. And then when it hit, I thought, are you freaking kidding me? And I was opposing that. I was really coming at it from a different direction. I was saying the same thing. 20 years ago, no one wanted to listen to me. They were arguing with me. Everyone hated me because I didn't agree with any of that crap. And now finally people realize it didn't work. So it was a disaster. What happened was the old-fashioned authority style had a real firm hold on parenting for, I don't know, decades, I don't know, centuries, who knows. Anyway, that was the old way. And there was a big generation gap. Okay. Then the pleaser parent style started coming in. The generation gap closed up. You became friends with your kids. You were trying to please them. And parents didn't want to parent their kids the way they were raised because they didn't feel heard and respected, whatever. So then the pendulum swung into the pleaser parent style. It took over. It just went too much the other way, right? So I don't do either. But if you're going to err on either side, go with the authority. At least you're raising stronger individuals and you can still have a good relationship with them, but they will resent you and rebel in the teen years. They'll go behind your back because the authority won't put up with the nonsense, right? Whereas a leader, they won't go behind your back and they won't act out because you're a leader and it's just different. But anyway, yeah, it swung too much the other way. Now it's coming back. It's leveling out. So that's where I think I've niched in here. Finally my time came, but no one was listening to me. They were arguing with me. And I never gave up. I never compromised, not for one split second. No freaking way. I feel like I'm kids' voices. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. right? Their love language is fun. Play with them in their world. Don't lecture them. Be accountable. If I messed up, boy, I owned it and I made it up to them. I was never yelled at. I never yelled. Anyway, my goal is not that you raise nice kids. That's a byproduct of all this. My goal is that I want you to wallow in parenting like I did. It was the most fun time my whole life. I loved parenting those two gorgeous little children. It was just total joy. I loved it. There's a few little ups and downs along the way, but not much. They were more like speed bumps, right? So that's what I want for you. I want you to enjoy your children. Get all that pesky discipline out of the way. Just get it sorted out. And then you can just relax and enjoy them. They'll be self-disciplined. That's what I want for you. Okay, there's actually a few people similar to you now. I couldn't find them 2 years ago. Okay, I've been online really hard for about 4 years now, like on social media. So a lot of people teaching my way now, using my same terminology. I'm not saying they got it from me. They might not have, but it's quite a coincidence in the last couple of years that this is really starting to catch on. And hopefully someone started the movement. I don't care who. Could have been me, could have been someone else. It just makes sense though. Leadership is where it's at. Be a leader for your children. You can be friends with them, although you're also accountable, right? You give respect to get it. Yeah. And there's a lot of people using my videos out there and claiming they're me too. Whatever, just get the word out. However, I don't care about that. Oh, this is Shailene. Listening to your podcast has helped me enjoy motherhood again. Thank you so much. Excellent. I always say that, I just tell you what to do. You're the ones who do all the work. So it means good for you. Good for you. You're doing the work. And it is work up front. It becomes joy, once you're good at it. It's just easy, but initially it's hard work. How do I deal with a stubborn child at bedtime? They're not stubborn with a leader. Work on your leadership skills and bedtime will get easier. You might want to check out my course. I do have a whole bedtime section, or you can just Google BratBusters bedtime. I have tons of videos on bedtime because I'm going to get going soon. And bedtime's kind of a long answer. I get this like oppositional child, ODD, defiance and all that. They don't act like that with a leader. They just don't. They may have stronger personalities, yes, but when they were up against a leader, they don't tend to argue because I'm not arguing either. I don't argue. So yeah, work on your leadership skills. Remember, I teach parenting, not kidding or teenagering or toddlering. We're not fixing kids. We're fixing and teaching parents here, okay? Set yourself up as a leader. And I've never worked with a kid. I've worked with hundreds of them and teenagers. I've never met one that I couldn't get respect with, but mutual respect, right? How to get your 5-year-old to stop lying? On the behavior board, put no lying, and then there's a consequence. Don't mix words. Don't do all that politically correct stuff. No lying. Don't say no, not telling the truth. No, but just say no lying. They understand that. So I used to watch her lives when my girl was a toddler. She's now 5. It's like entering a whole new world. Yeah. Once they hit school, I can remember dropping my kids off in grade 1, both of them. They'd already been in kindy and preschool since 3. And but grade 1 just felt so different. They got their uniforms. I made all my son's uniforms. Actually, I was in labor and I was sewing a pocket onto one of his uniforms. It was a labor with my daughter. And I don't remember if I got the pocket done. I think it was a bit wonky. Anyway, and dropping him off, I can remember, bye, sweetie, have fun. And then I sat in the parking lot, bawling my eyes out in the car. And I looked over and there was another mom doing the same thing. It's just another stage, right? High school was another stage. When they move out, it's another stage. When they start dating, there's just stage after stage. But that's part of it. That's what you're doing, right? You want them to be independent and go off and live on their own. And that's why I really got that leadership cemented when my kids were little, because I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't want to waste time disciplining. I just wanted to get that mutual respect going so that I could relax and enjoy every moment. A lot of parents say, gee, it went by so fast. I missed so much. If you have to work, that's different. But I don't feel that way. I feel like I wallowed in everything. I wasn't wasting time disciplining. I already had that leadership going, so I could just enjoy them. And I wallowed. I really did. I wallowed in parenting. I even said to my daughter a few months ago, I said, were you aware of just how much I wallowed in? And she goes, yes, we knew. Like there was no doubt. I loved it. Because I've been practicing for so many years before I had kids too. I was volunteering in daycare centers and babysitting. And then to finally have my own kids, my son was born when I was 29. And then at 29 to have my first child, my God, I could have had him at 19. I was ready. So you're not always financially set, but. Okay, I have to get going. I've still got I have 5 things I got to get completed tonight. And this was 1. So I've got 4 more things I have to do tonight. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. Check out my website. It's BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my boot camp courses. We have an upcoming thing going on. It's a Q&A series. You can see more about that on my website. Or you can look into coaching. And the Q&A series is only when you're in the boot camp courses. The coaching, a big wait list for that, but I will get to eventually. Or you can listen to the podcast. It's completely free and there's no wait list. My daughter and I do it together because we work together. And it's called BratBusters Parenting Podcast. It's on all the platforms and we save it on YouTube. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again. I don't know when, but hopefully maybe tomorrow or the next day. Anyway, happy parenting. Bye now.